I was one of them. I saw
Hello, everyone, and I want to thank you very much for coming here this evening. We have a very nice speaker that decided to come and join us.
Where?
First of all,
He'll
let's
regret
do the
that.
Pledge of Allegiance, please. Everybody stand up and hats off. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. What I would like to do is hand the meeting over to Ben, and he can just continue on.
No, Van, you were
Very good, thank you very
the
much.
major domo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I hope we're here to learn something about QSLing. If not, you're in the wrong room. Oh, over here.
And now Mr. DeMille.
It's good.
You got it written all over you, man.
Thank you.
The final.
Before I introduce,
Is there a reason why we're projecting on your chest?
He's an open book.
I hope you're going to edit all this.
Yes, he gets it. No, I'm going to leave it in this time.
Wanted to remind you that tomorrow is our 60th anniversary open house celebration at the clubhouse from noon to 5.
Noon to 7 tomorrow.
Noon to 7 tomorrow and noon to 5 on Sunday.
Right.
This is an open house for the general public, for all of your friends, relatives, whatever. Refreshments will be served, which usually brings them in droves. We'll be operating, and the stations are set up, so we'll be on all bands, and it was in QST. What frequencies will be on? In general, it's 0.245 in most cases, not the CW, of course. And we've also let a lot of people know that we're going to be there, so hopefully we have enough operators, because it could be a busy day. A lot of people like these special events. Two bands at a time. Okay, but we'll be on and off on all bands. Thank you, Jim. Thanks to Jim for setting up the logging, and Tom for setting things up, and who else? Ed for doing all the publicity and sending everything
Carl
out.
for opening the
Right,
event.
Carl bringing the key, right?
And Carl for bringing the key. Okay. Anyway, so without further ado, I'd like to give you a little bit of background on Pete, W2IRT. He is the manager, the QSL manager for the W2QSL Bureau.
For the letter O.
Okay. You mean we needed 25 other people to do this, right?
Yep, 24 actually, but 23.
It's nice to be an O, though.
Yeah, if you have number 2 in your call sign and then the 2 followed by an O, I'm the guy who does your cards.
No wonder I don't get anything with D. Okay. Anyway.
Yeah, he's a deadbeat.
Pete's a retired Windows system administrator. He was a movie projectionist earlier in his life. He's been married for about 16 years, which is good in today's numbers. Anyway, he has no kids but 4 cats. He put on one hell of a picnic a couple of weeks ago for the, well, Tom didn't make it, but he had FRC guys at his house over in West Caldwell. He was first licensed in 1979, so he's a member of DX 25-year club. And he's into DXing and contesting and counting cards. If anybody brought any of their cards, he'd be happy to work on that after the presentation for your awards if you bring paper cards. And without further ado, it's Pete Dougherty, W2IRT.
Thanks very much. Go FRC. My presentation this evening is essentially the whole process of QSLing in general. I'll talk a little bit about the Bureau. I had expected that we would have had Bill Hudzik from the ARRL. He did a great presentation up in Newington last year about the Bureau, and he was going to give that. I guess he's been held up in traffic, but at the end of this, if I haven't bored you all to tears, I'll talk a little bit about our Bureau system as well. But excuse my back, by the way. I've got some notes on my laptop, and there's no real easy way to do this, so I'm going to just take a quick look here. The presentation is on physical QSLing for the most part, and what you're going to do with them after you get them. Just out of curiosity, how many folks here are active on HF? Okay, all right. And do you have cards of your own?
Yes.
You know how to fill out cards, all that kind of good stuff? All right, so this is going to be probably...
Came with a 3-cent stamp.
All right, this is going to be old hat, I think, to most of you, but we'll see what we can do here and maybe give you some ideas. The purpose of QSLing, reminder of a QSO that you like. Get a card from the first guy you ever worked, or from the first one in every country you worked. If you're working on awards, or to help the other guy with his awards. Even if you don't really care for cards yourself, you might want to help the other guy who says, "Oh, well, thanks. It's my very first contact with Bergen County, New Jersey, and I'm collecting counties. I'd appreciate your card." So, a lot of reasons to QSL. If you want to getting started, there's three ways realistically to confirm confirmations. More than that, but direct via the Bureau and Logbook of the World or other electronic methods. Via direct means you're sending a mail piece directly to the ham in the other country, from you to him. The Bureau uses the national societies. In our case, you would send the cards through the ARRL Bureau. Cards going from the ARRL to Germany, they would go to DARC. DARC would sort them down to the individual clubs, and the clubs would sort them at their meetings just like this to their individual members. The Bureau is a big deal over there, and the same in Spain and Japan and so on and so forth. Logbook of the World and EQSL do not involve physical cards at all. They're strictly an electronic confirmation method between you and the other person, and in the case of Logbook of the World, via the ARRL. If you're going to use the Bureau, you cannot send domestic cards. So if you work somebody in Oregon, you can't send them a card through the Bureau if you're here in New Jersey, or somebody in Kansas can't send something to somebody in Maine. You can use the Bureau for Alaska, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Guam, so on and so forth, but not lower 48 to lower 48. That's a big no-no. When you're doing a Bureau, an outgoing Bureau sort, you put the cards in call book order, as I've given a demonstration there. Your 3As, 4Zs, 5Z, DL, EA, etc. in that order, all the way down to I guess Zulu Alpha and whatever, Zulu Sierra, South Africa. You just put them all in one big bundle, no elastics or slips of paper or anything like that, just one big bundle. Send it along with a copy of your ARRL membership, the appropriate fees, and I'll talk about that in just a second. Send it all off to Newington, and then comes the big wait. I don't know if any of you have seen the news, but the Bureau, unfortunately, the outgoing Bureau prices have gone up, or are about to go up very significantly come the 1st of November. It's now going to be, I believe, $1.15 an ounce. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have the information right in front of me, but I believe it's $1.15 per ounce, plus a $7 administrative fee on top of that. So for most people, I think that works out to about a 40% price increase, but it still works out to about 20 cents, 25 cents per card. So it's still a pretty good deal. All right, if you're going to send by the direct method, and that's the main thrust of what I'm talking about tonight, you got to find the correct address. And the easiest way to do that is on QRZ.com. There are other ways, CD-ROMs, the old call book from back in the day, but QRZ.com is by far your best bet. Part of the problem also is the postal services in certain countries, especially former Soviet republics and a few places in South America, unfortunately they have a bad reputation for theft. You know, you see the house up on the hill with all the antennas, and it comes to the attention of the postman that the envelopes that he gets with all those nice fancy stamps from America, they contain dollar bills, and they get a little bit of extra attention by the postman. So what you want to do is you want to make your mailings look as inconspicuous as possible. And I'll get into that in a couple of moments. Also, when you're sending direct, the expeditions, more often than not, will use a QSL manager. So if you're sending to somebody, let's say you work somebody or work at the expedition, guys to Comoros, for example, Delta 66 Delta that just finished or just about to finish. You would not be sending your card to Comoros, you'd be sending it to their manager. I don't know who he is off by heart, but you would be doing it that way. There are a lot of guys in poorer countries who use managers in Germany or the US or Great Britain or whatever, because their postal systems are reliable, cost effective, and it's much easier to work that way. So, rather than just this whole gigantic block of text, I'll just show you how I do it. What I use, and my QSL return rate is somewhere in the vicinity of 85 to 90%. Some will always get lost, like I said, dishonest postal employees, whatever. But I start with a number 10 envelope, a number 6 3/4, the smaller return size, which is the perfect size for the QSL cards that you would get from just about anywhere in the world, except for the big Japanese ones. My card, and here I had $1, but you're going to need 2 or 3. All these series of pictures were taken in 2002, and things have gone up a little bit in price since then. But what I do is when I fill out the QSO data, I use a label, and if you're going to use a label, I have a little stamp that I use, or you can sign it, or just make a little squiggle. What you want to do if you're putting a label on a card, you want to have it so that a mark of some kind goes from the label to the card, because if you're in a rare county or WPX or something, and they're submitting your card for an award, the award manager will have to know that they just didn't stick a label on a card. It could be anything you want. So you have to make a little strike mark, or I use my little circular stamp there to ensure that it's legitimate. What I do is I take the money or an IRC coupon or whatever it is, put it in the flap of the envelope, and I put it in upside down. And I learned this the hard way. I sent a card off to somebody in, I believe it was Turkmenistan. I think it was Nodir, if I'm not mistaken. And he has an electric letter opener. And he sliced it open, and off went the flap of my envelope. So he wrote back. He actually supplied an envelope. He was nice enough about this. But he said, just as a suggestion, put your return envelope in upside down. This isn't going to happen. So, here's Bill here. So the way I do it is I put the card and everything else in. You see the envelope there is upside down. And it also, when you put the dollar bill, if you're using a gummed envelope, it prevents the envelope from self-sealing. And that's happened especially if you send it to someplace in the Caribbean or South America where it's very hot and humid. If you use a regular envelope, it'll gum itself shut. So if you put a piece of wax paper or dollar bills or whatever, it won't seal up that way. Everything goes in, some clear packing tape over the back flap, and address it on the front. 80 cents. Yeah, good luck with that these days. And that's it. If you're sending to a country that uses the Cyrillic alphabet, they won't be able to read your envelope. And if you got a new postal worker in beautiful downtown St. Petersburg who's sending a card back to you in America, he won't understand a single thing, just as if you wouldn't understand a lick of Cyrillic if you weren't familiar with the language. So put the letters CWA below USA in the return envelope. They know what CWA means, United States of America. They'll put it in the CWA bag. They don't care about anything above that, and off it goes. The other thing you might want to do is on the lower left corner of the envelope, just make a little tiny snip, and that's kind of shorthand in a lot of countries. That means printed matter. There's nothing, nothing secret in there. There's nothing of value, and just go from there.
Where did you make this snip? What did you say?
What's that?
Where did you say make it snip?
Yeah, on the lower left side of your return envelope, and you can do it on your outgoing envelope too. Just a tiny one, and they'll see it and they'll understand.
Never heard of that.
What do you put on?
You cut the corner with scissors. Yeah. If you make your envelopes look like business correspondence, chances are it's not going to attract any extra attention. As you can see, I'm going to go back a little bit here. I use my business name. There's nothing on there that looks like a ham radio mail piece at all. It looks like just a private piece of correspondence from a business to the other guy. There's no little pictures of towers and no call signs and any of that stuff on there at all. It's nice to be proud of the hobby, but if you want your card to get there, never, ever, ever, ever put call signs or drawings or anything reference to amateur radio. And a lot of folks will take number 10 envelopes for the return and fold them up. That makes the envelope lumpy. Again, a lumpy envelope attracts attention. You don't want to get the attention of the bad guys in the post office over there.
So the snip, that allows someone to stick a probe in. I mean, I'm serious. That's what they do. I mean, the standard espionage thing is to put a snip in, put a hook inside, curl the material, pull it out, review it, coil it up, and then bring it back.
Interesting.
That's exactly why they do that. That way it can be subject to the postal inspection without actually opening the envelope.
Interesting. I learned something tonight. I use when I'm sending to some really difficult parts of the world, I use a meter sticker. I go to the post office and say, I don't want to put a stamp on this. I want a meter sticker. Again, that makes it look like a piece of professional business correspondence. I found that that was the only way to get mail into Pakistan to AP2IA. I got it through him, the meter sticker. Even registered sometimes doesn't get through to him. But the meter sticker did, and he got that, and he was quite grateful. That was my first AP, and I think that was on 10 meters. Realistically, 6 weeks is about how long it takes, if it should take for a direct. I've seen them come back 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. I've seen them come back in 5 days. That's just kind of how it works. I think my record is 4 days, excluding the day of mailing, and that was for the UK. I guess I just caught my letter caught the right flights at the right time. Let's see. Yeah, registered mail. Don't send registered unless the guy says that's the only way to get it to me. The guy might have to take a day off work to go down to the post office, and that's the last thing you want. IRCs are another thing. International reply coupons. Does anybody here not know what an IRC is? All right. My rule with IRCs, just say no, for the simple reason, if you ever try to exchange an IRC at our post office and try to mail something with it,
what it is?
Yeah,
They haven't a clue what it is.
yeah, they don't have a clue. So imagine that same thing in a foreign country. Does the guy over there want to subject himself to all of that just to get you your card back? No. In the bin. So a couple of dollars, everybody's happy. It's the universal language. And you know, the old saw going around, yes, it's illegal in some countries to possess foreign currencies. If you were to ask anybody in those countries, what do they want? They're going to say US dollar bills, please. And believe me, they work. India is one country where it's a big no-no. The first time I tried a QSL, I tried to get rupees. They laughed at me. Just send us $1 and we're all happy. The new normal is OQRS, Online QSL Request System. And it's really interesting. You don't have to send them a card. And most e-expeditions are doing this, and it's very easy for you to do it on your own, to get cards sent to you this way as well, if you're a member of ClubLog. And I've got a couple of screenshots in here that'll do it. Well, what you do is you export your QSO data or fill it in manually. You pay a small fee, which is usually a little bit more than you would spend directly, typically $3 to $5 for a card. And they will mail you a card. They supply the envelopes. They do everything. And the nice thing about it is because, let's say it's a de-expedition, if they're sending out 5,000 cards, all those 5,000 mail pieces go into the mail at once. There's very little chance that your mail is going to be intercepted and taken prisoner. So here are a couple of screenshots of how to do this. Let me try to dig in this a little bit if I can. There we go, and focus it a wee bit. I think that's about as good as it gets. All right, so what you can do is you can upload, if you use an electronic format logger, you can upload your entire log as an ADIF file. I use the DX Lab Suite for logging. And there's an option within DX Lab Suite to automatically load every QSO in real time up to ClubLog. So this all happens behind the scenes. So in this case, this was for VP8 SGI to South Georgia earlier this year. I went on to the ClubLog entry for VP8 SGI, hit my call sign and show contacts, and then it shows every single contact that I made. There's a button at the bottom to request QSL. There's a slightly different format if you look on the greeny one, this is for Delta 66 Delta that, like I said, is either just finished or about to finish. I worked them on 5 different bands. You go at the very bottom where it says request a QSL, you press that, and then it brings this up. If you have uploaded your log to Club Log, you should see the times match. If there's nothing in here, you fill in the date and time information manually. Then you have your choice of, you can either ask for a QSL to be sent directly or via the Bureau. Via the Bureau is usually no charge, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take quite a bit of time. If you're QSLing directly, in this case, they have a policy of $3.96, which I'm guessing is €4 or €4.50 rounded and converted. They'll send your card. So you send them, $4, $5, $6, $10, whatever you want. As long as it's at least $3.96, you don't have to send cards. Don't worry about envelopes. Don't worry about anything. Just PayPal them that, and your card will be coming very shortly after that. Then just hit checkout. It sends you onto the PayPal website, and you fill in your information there, and you're all
So
done.
the $3.96 is for 6 cards?
It's for 6 QSOs, I believe. Everybody has it done differently.
It says each.
Yeah, each direct 6 QSO card is $3.96. So if you work the guy 20 times, you're going to be paying more than $3.96. Some people, when they have a direct option, it's only a flat rate of $5 for however many you've made. Usually, as is the case here, Bureau cards can be requested for free, and they may come out a little bit later. I'm going to talk a little bit about Logbook of the World now, which is a fantastic option if you're an awards collector. I'm a big guy with DXCC, worked all zones. I absolutely love them. And Logbook of the World has completely revolutionized QSLing in that regard. It's a secure electronic confirmation system, and it was implemented by the ARRL expressly for DXCC, WAS, and also the VUCC, VHF, UHF awards. It's also been used right now by the CQWPX award, although I don't think too many folks have done that. I'm not going to get into the setup procedure. It is a little on the complex side, and that's really subject to an entire discussion on its own. But what you do is you go to the League's website, you download their software called TQSL, Trusted QSL, and you request something called a certificate. What a certificate is, I don't want to get too technical in this regard, but what the certificate is, it's a guarantee of authenticity that you are you. When you are sending your information up to the Logbook of the World server, it's an absolute guarantee that the person who's sending that is you and not somebody pretending to be you. Not a big deal if you're just Joe regular DXer, making a few contacts here or there, or a contester. A really, really, really big deal if you are the keeper of a log for a major DXpedition. You don't want anybody spoofing contacts in there. So you need the certificate. And let me diverge from this a little bit. The other system is called EQSL. They don't have that secure certificate. They have something called authenticity guaranteed, but it's nowhere near as secure as the LOTW system. And that's really the thing that makes LOTW as wonderful it is. Yes, it's a pain in the rear end to set up, but once you set it up, you never have to worry about it again. And they're working to make it a little bit easier. So what you do is you request the certificate from the League, and about 2 or 3 days later, you're going to get a postcard from Newington with a password on it. You put that password into your TQSL, and that signs the certificate. The certificate becomes live at that point. Is that still the case still?
Well, then you put in your own, that's not the card that you send is not the password.
No.
You go in there with that, and then you have to enter your own password.
Right. And you can also password protect your certificate if you want. I don't password protect mine because, frankly, I'm in Essex County, New Jersey. Who the hell wants another contact from Essex County, New Jersey? If I decided to move to Scarborough Reef after the Chinese build their big base there in the hotel, and I become the permanent custodian on DS7, yeah, I'm going to be signing that certificate. You can bet on that. Yes.
Question, on Logbook of the World, I have never used it, and yet I got 30 years of shoes, so it's coming from somewhere probably. If I join there, are they going to individually, or are they going to update my?
Well, Your question might be answered a couple of slides down from here. We'll see. If it's still clear as mud, just ask me after, and I can go over it with you. But
I recalled something. It's in your postcard. You enter that, and that gives you another password. You can either allow that, or you can change it.
yeah, it's been about 10 years since I did it myself, so I'm just kind
It's
of
okay.
going by memory. I signed up on the first day it was available for beta, and I signed up.
One-time use, so you have to put in your own, you have to put
Yeah.
in another password.
Yeah, like I said, it's a bit of a thing to set up, but once it's set up, you never have to touch it again, other than to renew the certificate every 3 years. That's really the big thing. But the most important takeaway from this entire slide is back your certificate up. If you don't and you lose it, you've got to start all over from scratch. If your computer dies on you and you don't have it backed up, I back mine up to Dropbox. And you can do it to Google Drive or put it on a thumb drive or whatever. But because your certificate is keyed to one specific computer, and if that computer is to die or get stolen, or you decide you're going to give it to somebody else and buy a new one or whatever, that certificate is lost forever. If you back it up as a T12, I think it is, or P12 file, and then restore that backed up certificate to any other computer, then you're good to go. So make sure you back your certificates up. If you're on Logbook and you haven't made a backup already, do it tonight after you get home. Believe me, if you get a hard drive crash, you're going to be saying very, very impolite words and kick the dog and whatever else when all of a sudden you can't upload the Logbook anymore. Oops, and my presenter just got duped here. Hold on.
It's not backed up.
Oh, this is on Dropbox, believe me, it's back. There we go, okay. So you would install the TQSL software, and then you can request a certificate. These are my certificates. This is one of my certificates here. Doesn't look like much, it's just a little encrypted file that goes on there. But the other thing is when you have your main certificate, my main certificate is W2IRT. I operate in Canada with my Canadian call of E3THX for the CQ Worldwide CW contest. I use my W2IRT certificate to request another certificate for V3THX. I don't need to go through the postcard prompt and any of this. So if you, when I operated from the Bahamas, I self-signed a W2IRT/C6A certificate, and so on and so forth. So once you get your first one, that's the big one right there. The certificate is then used to electronically sign an ADIF format file that you generate with your logger. So let's say you just worked a contest, you've got your 2,000 or 3,000 QSOs that you worked in CQ Worldwide. You export from, let's say, N1MM or CT or whatever. You export that into an ADIF file, and you can do two things with that ADIF file. The first is you put it into your DX logger, which is your permanent logger, and the second thing is you can sign that with the LOTW certificate and upload that to Logbook of the World right after the contest is over. So you're going to get QSLs starting to come in within a few minutes after the end of a major contest. It's an amazing thing to see happen. And this is diagrammatically how it happens. So each person has a signed certificate, and I have my signed certificate. I upload my log to the league, you upload your log, and then they generate an electronic match. If the call signs of it says that W2IRT has worked W2XYZ and W2XYZ has worked W2IRT, same call signs, same band, same mode, same date and time within 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Yeah. So if your clock is off and you have it, or you set to local instead of UTC, it's not going to match. Or if your date is wrong, because remember that the date will change at either 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern time. And that hit me with a guy in Afghanistan on 80 meters a couple of years ago. He didn't have his clock set correctly and he wasn't getting any matches, and I desperately needed that Afghanistan LOTW hit for my DXCC award. So I went back and forth with him a couple of times as a U.S. serviceman, and I explained what was going on. He said, "Oh, you're absolutely right. He did it." And now 10 minutes later, I had Afghanistan confirmed on 80. I was a very happy camper that night. And this is a typical display. I don't know how well you can see it, showing what a Logbook of the World results page will look like. These are the most recent QSLs from about 3 o'clock this afternoon. And again, it's not very clear, at least to me. But in this case, I've got 72,000 QSOs in my log and 35,000 LOTW records as a result. So it's just a little under for worked all zones. So, and I think if you go after a 40 zone WAZ, that's harder to get than a DXCC, by far. By an order of magnitude, it's more difficult than 100 countries. You can work DXCC quite easily in a weekend. It's a lot harder to work worked all zones in a weekend, although you can do it during CQ Worldwide and maybe the ARRL if you're lucky. The other thing is the interface, in my personal opinion, is absolutely atrocious. Does it matter? No. But you can use the authenticity guaranteed worked all EQSL hit for your worked all zones award. And the manager there just goes in and verifies that you said what you said, and you're off to the races. All right, award card checking. When you get the cards in hand, what are you going to do with them? Well, most people, like I said, they want to do it for DXCC or worked all states or VUCC or something else. And the physical QSL card originally was the proof that was required to say you've achieved this. You can submit a logbook of the world application. You can do an online DXCC application, which is the cheapest way of doing it. A traditional paper application, which is a little bit easy. And you used to be able to do a hybrid where you would submit some logbook of the world and then say, I'm going to follow it up with physical cards later. They discontinued that about 4 years ago. I kind of liked that way. That was the way I almost did it. I thought it was the best. But I can't do that anymore. They're two separate applications. Field checkers. I'm a field checker, and what that means is that instead of sending your cards off to Newington, you can take them to me. You can, give me a phone call or send me an email and say, hey, I want to apply for a DXCC award or a DXCC endorsement or a VUCC or a worked all states or worked all continents. Or I'm also a checker for the worked all zones from CQ magazine. So you just call me up, I'll check your stuff right away. We used to have some restrictions that it used to be. Back in the old days, if I couldn't check cards back in the day for anything, for QSOs that are older than 10 years, and I couldn't check deleted entities. Those restrictions are gone now. The only restriction is the 160 meter restriction. If you're a DXCC card checker that has 160 meter DXCC, you can check 160 cards, and I do. So if you're just getting your top band DXCC, I can check the cards for that. That's no problem. If you're doing a traditional paper application where you're filling out the QSO form data yourself, the most important thing to remember is the band and then load within the band order. So you put 6 meter CW first, 6 meter phone, 6 meter digital, 10 CW, etc., right down to 160 digital for all your JT65s on 160. And then you put multiple. So let's say you worked BS7H on 3 bands and 2 modes, and you want them all to count. You would put all of those at the very bottom of the application, the very last cards. The other way of doing it is what's called the online DXCC. And this is the way I recommend anybody do their DXCC applications. It's half the cost of the traditional application. And there's a reason for that, because you're entering the data yourself. What you do is you have your big stack of QSL cards in front of you, and then you go down in here, and you fill in the call sign of the guy you work, the QSO date, band, mode, and the entity that he's from. And you do that for every one of them. So if you have 500 QSL cards and you're submitting a massive application, somebody has got to enter that data, whether it's you or one of the ladies up in Newington, somebody's got to enter that. If you do the work, you pay half the price. So I think it's a pretty good deal. And also, if you use certain computer loggers, and again, DX Lab Suite will do this, it'll generate an ADI file, an ADIF file. You upload the ADIF file in here, and import ADIF. You would use that up there, and you wouldn't have to fill anything out at all. It would just automatically populate, hit the button, pay your fees, and away you go. So what you do, after you've entered all your data, double check it against what's on the screen. The biggest thing that I find when I'm field checking an application is that folks will have information that is different than what is on the card. When there's a difference, go with what's on the card. Because if you said you worked a guy on January 1st and the card said you worked him on December 31st, I gotta go with what's on the card. Even if you know you worked him on the 1st, your log says you worked him on the 1st, the card says December 31st, you put December 31st on the application, and everybody gets really happy. You click Save to make your application live after you pay it, and that'll generate a PDF form containing all of your QSL record information. And this is what it's going to look like. You'll get a cover sheet, make sure that you sign it, and put your call and date, and then you'll have any number of sheets that match the QSL. So what you do is you take all of this paperwork. In this case, I had 2 pages. I didn't print out the second one. These are all the ones that I had physical cards for that I needed to get checked for one of my own awards. I brought this paperwork and the stack of cards corresponding to Mike and to IBB, our division director. Before he became a division director, he was also the XCC card checker. He still is. And he checked my cards, and I made a couple of nasty mistakes there. We won't get into that. But you take the paperwork and the cards and make sure the cards are in the same order as they're listed there, with QSO data or label side up to make the checker's job easier. And that's it. So when you're doing this, you contact the DXCC card checker, make an appointment, whatever. In my case, just get a hold of me, Peter at W2IRT.net. It's on QRZ.com. Give me a phone call, drop me an email, whatever, carrier pigeon, send me a card by the bureau, whatever. And set up the appointment. I'm also going to be checking at the Barra Ham Fest in a couple of weeks. I do that twice a year. I love it, Jim. Thank you very much for the invitation as always. You can also get them checked in Sussex. I did Sussex the last couple of years. We also have Steve, KF2TO, is a checker. He does Split Rock, he does Sussex, and whatever else. And the real benefit of this is that you're not risking your valuable QSL cards in the mail. That's really a big deal, because some folks, these are once-in-a-lifetime contacts from entities that don't exist anymore, and managers who are dead. They have got these valuable cards. They don't want to part with them, even via registered mails. Sometimes trucks overturn, despite our best efforts. So if you bring your card to a checker, the checker will hand you your cards right back after they're done. You're not risking them in any manner, shape, or form. So you need to have your cards, the application forms, the record pages, the correct fees if you're doing a traditional application. If you're doing an online, you're paying online, so you don't have to put in credit card information or whatever. And also include a blank stamped envelope. And the reason for that is that's how we have to send your application off to Newington. After the card checker checks your cards, and he signs the application, you sign the application, you don't get the application back. The checker will send that off to Newington within a couple of days. And you get your cards back, and then hopefully in 2 or 3 days, the envelope gets into Newington, and usually within a week these days. That's a week to 10 days is their typical processing time. And let's see here. Yeah, I think I already. Yeah, we already did that. These are the current fees that are involved. The application fee for a traditional application is now $16, and that includes 101 QSOs. So if you're only doing, 3 contacts, it's still $16. If you're doing 102, it's 16 plus 15 cents. If you want a printout, it's an extra $2, $17 if you want a certificate mailed to you, or if you have several certificates, $12 each for a $5 mailing fee, and $7.50 for a lapel pin. If you're using online DXCC, it's $8 for the application. That also includes 101 QSOs, 8 cents each, and everything else is the same. And if you're using Logbook of the World, it's $5.50 for the application and 12 cents each for each QSL after 101. Questions? So,
12 cents each is after 101 or for all?
No, for all.
Okay.
Yeah, for if you're doing a Logbook of the World, every QSO is 12 cents. There's only 101. I'm sorry if I was sorry.
So I'm kind of surprised that, based on Logbook of the World, that the league doesn't shill for awards and say, "Hey, you've qualified for this, moron," or you've got, you need 4 more QSOs, or we need QSL cards. So why don't they promote that, Bill, wherever you are?
They do it online. When you're there, they'll tell you what you're missing, and they suggest.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, they should be beating you to death to sit there and apply for awards. You should get emails.
You're preaching to the choir.
Every time you log in with your login to the our website, it should be sitting there saying, and these are your pending awards that you haven't bothered to file for.
It's a question, hang on a second.
Or endorsements.
It's a question of resources. That's really it. They only have a couple of guys who are doing this in their spare time. One of the big guys who's doing the coding for it is Dave Bernstein, AA6YQ, the creator of the DX Lab program.
It takes time. It takes time and they aren't getting paid.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
It takes time and they're not getting paid.
All right. That answers that
I
question.
assume Workdale zones will never come through ARRL.
Don't say never. There are a lot of people.
I'll push it, yes.
I want to see it happen. I'm a very, very big
Yeah, but then
believer.
you'll have to use Logbook of the World.
Right now,
Logbook on what? I can't see it happening with Logbook of the World.
I think it is going to happen.
It's gonna happen, okay.
I believe it is. I don't know anything for sure, but they have to clean up so much stuff. The code, the original code that was written, 12, 15 years ago was so bad, so poorly hacked together.
Okay.
They had to clean up the back end of it. If you recall, after CQ Worldwide and Sweepstakes a few years ago, there was a 36-hour delay. And that really brought everything to a head, and they decided, you know what?
It's 2 weeks delay.
Oh, it's
Up to 2 weeks delay, yeah.
up to 2 weeks? Oh, what? No, I don't think it was that long, was it?
Yeah.
Okay, I know it was a long time, and I was very unhappy. And that was the tipping point. They said, okay, we got to redo this from the ground up. And Dave and a couple of other guys have been doing exactly that. And they're not quite there yet, but once it's into a state of good repair, then I think you're going to see other people using it. They haven't set aside how they're going to do it yet. Sir?
One comment, one question. The comment is, for those of you who play with your cell phone in your spare time, there are a couple of really good apps that you can import data from Logbook of the World into. One is called DX Chaser, which actually gives you a pictorial view of the world and how many contacts in each zone. And the other is LOTW Look, which actually gives you the road data, which is very similar to the Logbook of the World.
Very nice.
PC screen. So
Is that on both iOS and
I have an Android, so I don't know if it's on the iPhone, but it works great on the Android.
What was the second one, Dave?
LOTW Look. Yeah.
And you had a question?
Yeah, the question is, I use ADI files, I upload them all the time because I prefer to log in QRZ because I started with that. And as a paid subscriber for the minimum $25 or whatever it is, you can export the ADI files and then I read them right into Logbook of the World. Every time I log into Logbook of the World, every time I upload, it asks me if I want to exclude the duplicates, which I always say yes. Why on earth would they allow duplicates?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a very good question.
But there's an answer to that.
Yes.
Because just because you got the guy in the logbook twice, doesn't mean that he has you in his logbook
Or you can
twice.
file once.
Honestly, just upload everything. It doesn't matter. You
Upload everything.
could have 100,000 orphans in there. They don't particularly care. It's not going to slow down the system very much. Just upload absolutely everything. But I would recommend, if you're using QRZ for logging, I would seriously consider getting an actual DX logger. You will thank yourself down the line, because the power of a real DX logger is unbelievable. It can help you work, guys, if it has, because you can interface with the cluster network, or in the case of DX Lab Suite, you can interface with up to 5 or 6 cluster networks, plus your own skimmer, so you can see at a glance what's happening on a worldwide basis. It can tell all your stats for everything at a glance. It's much, much more powerful, and I would recommend you do that. Jim?
Now it's 3 things. In LOTW for DXCC, you can print out all the countries that are in your logbook now. I discovered that there's an option where you can print out all the DXCC entities. And this gives me a nice little notebook, about 12 pages, of all the countries I haven't worked yet.
Yeah, it's the same matrix that they would charge you $2 for if you want them to print it out and send it to you. Absolutely.
Yeah, but that option isn't obvious, so I figured I'd mention it. Number 2, I like QRZ logging also. And I found out from one of the support staff that it's not obvious. that you can upload to LOTW with 3 mouse clicks.
That's
You
what I
setting, and then it comes up, upload to LOTW, there's a button. And then you just click your password, and everything goes up, and it ignores the duplicates. And I do this every night after I've loaded my stuff in there. And the question is, the little round verified rubber stamps, where do you get that from?
Go to a printer.
I know somebody who did rubber stamps, and they did that one for me. But, Sign Man does them, I think, for Go to Staples, any place. Self-inking stamps. If you pay more than $10, you're getting ripped off.
So you just say you have to design it yourself and have it done.
All you need is just a little something, you know, I have another one that says 73D W2IRT, printed on something that's this big or in a round circle or whatever. They'll get it done for you in like an hour, and get some ink too, because if you're doing a lot of cards, you're gonna get that, those impressions are gonna be very light.
So there's no standardized thing to do.
No, Sign Man of Baton Rouge, he's the guy who does these and other ones. He's in Dayton and goes to all the major fests as well. He can do those. Staples, anywhere. Like I said, 10, maybe $12, but no more than that.
That's a stamp for Paul Sam.
I've been logging with ham data for years. I don't think there's any way to export the file. What do I do?
Start over. Print it out and import it. Yeah, that's a very good question. Is the developer of the program still alive?
I don't know if the person I contact with and send money to is the developer.
Well, if there's some...
He only guarantees it up to Windows XP.
Well, there might be a way, depending on the database format, maybe to export it into CSV file format or something like that. You have to work with the developer or work with the representative. It's going to be in a proprietary, customized database, and there may or may not be a way. I'm just not familiar enough with that particular program to know the answer to it, but there should be a way to take data from even the most obscure loggers. I would be very surprised if there wasn't.
You know, I've been putting in every contact since 1958.
Well, here's a thought, and again, I sound like a shill for Dave.
I was born in
I can print it out, yes.
I sound like a shill for Dave Bernstein's free program here, but what you might want to do, if you get a hold of A6IQ and explain that, say, does your software provide a way to import from this particular log? This guy is a genius, and he's the only contact I really know, although I'm sure there are other developers with DX for Win and so on and so forth, and Log for OM is another really big one. They might have the answers, but I know Dave will be able to give you an answer for sure, one way or the other. And also just do a simple Google search. What's the name of the program?
Ham data.
Okay, so export ham data ADIF. Just do a Google search on that, and I'm sure you're not the first person to be asking that question, so there might be a way to do it.
Quick, how many records are in the logbook of the world, and what kind of database is it in?
Bill, do you know the answer to that?
Several million.
Well, the number of records shows up when you log in.
Every time you log on, it'll tell you that.
Well, I'm not there yet, but okay. But I mean, I've gotten a certificate 4 times and never got it to
I
work.
think there are probably about 75 or between 75 and 100,000 users.
Yeah.
Correct.
So there's hundreds of millions of
Well, not hundreds of millions, but there are...
contacts?
I think 7 million. I forget.
No,
Yeah,
it's got to be more than 7 million.
I couldn't tell you right off.
It constantly updates, every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I guess my point is I'm wondering if it's in a Hadoop database because it never changes, it only gets added to.
Yeah, it is only added to. Those contacts are in there forever.
And ultimately it's going to become unwieldy if it's not in something like that.
It did a few years ago, and that's why everything's being rewritten to share the load and so on and so forth. I still say they should be uploading everything to the Amazon cloud, but
no.
Who knows? That's not my department, it's above my pay grade, sir.
Are you going to stay around after the...
Is N1MM Plus rising to the top as to be one of the most preferred?
N1MM Plus is, as far as I'm concerned, the single best piece of software in the amateur radio market. But it is not a DX logger, it is a contest logger. And if you want to use it, you can, but its shortcomings as a DX logger are as many as its advantages as a contest logger.
DX logger being?
A DX logger is something that keeps track of all of your awards. Anyone in M Plus will not do that. It'll log your contacts, it'll let you operate as automatically as you can, and it's wonderful. But the downside is it's not a good long-term logger for everything else. A good logger would be DX Lab Suite or Log for OM, DX for Win, DX Base, that's kind of an abandoned piece of software, they're the ones that I use. Ham Radio Deluxe was really good for a while, a lot of people I know are
What
paying
about
off.
LOTW?
You can't log directly into
Updates,
LTW.
if you press home
And it
again, it
gives
will
you
update
everything,
all
you
the
got
numbers.
DX, oh, it doesn't give you work to all customers.
No. That's not a logging software, that's a QSL.
Okay.
Any other questions?